All right, so the Blue Jays aren't trading Vladimir Guerrero Jr., so the Mariners have pivoted, at least partly, to another Blue Jays bat. We'll break down the Justin Turner trade coming up here on the Locked On Mariners podcast. Colby, hit it.
You are Locked On Mariners, your daily Seattle Mariners podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Ahoy, sailors. It is Monday, July 29th, 2024. This is Ty Gonzalez and Colby Patnode for the Locked On Mariners podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So we just wasted 30 minutes of our lives recording Mailbag Monday because the Mariners decided to make a trade right as we were signing off. So yeah, great. Thanks, Jerry. But the Mariners folks have brought in another bat. This time it's veteran World Series champion Justin Turner. They get him from the Blue Jays for prospect RJ Schreck. Before we get into the deal, shout out to our title sponsor today, Tax Network USA. Did you know that it's never too late to resolve your tax issues with the IRS? Don't wait. Reduce your tax debt and get help from a team of licensed tax professionals by calling 1-800-549-1000 or visiting tnusa.com/locked on. And if you want to hear from me and Colby even more and help support the show, check out our Patreon. The link is in the description and you can sign up for a free 7-day trial. So Justin Turner, he's 39 years old. He is the oldest active hitter in all of Major League Baseball, but he's having a good year still. 253, 348, 370. That's a 109 WRC plus. He's also striking out just 17.2% of the time. He's walking 11.2% of the time. Yeah, compared to what the Mariners are mostly running out on a night-to-night basis, that's an upgrade. He's obviously not the ideal bat that everyone wanted, Colby, but like I said, he helps, right?
Sure, and he was actually available. Unlike your Vladimir Guerrero Jr.'s and unlike your Brent Rookers, this guy was available. You could be had. And the Mariners did it. And they got him for, I mean, I don't want to say it's a steal because it's all relative. And this is a 39-year-old who's only got 2 months of club control left. But they got him for nothing too terribly consequential, at least to you, in the coming years. And this is a guy who is going to help. He lengthens the lineup. He can play first. He's going to DH. My assumption is, based on how the roster looks right now, he's going to be the primary DH, and then he'll play first base against lefties. He's got a few games over at third this year. Remember, he used to be a very good third baseman, but obviously at 39 years old, that's going to be limited. But yeah, not a ton of power. You're not paying for a big home run bat here. What you're paying for is a guy who walks, a guy who puts the ball in play, the guy who gives you the professional at bat, hits the ball in the gap, gets some doubles. That's really what you're paying for here. And it's just a good quality major league hitter. Like there's nothing super sexy about this deal. There's nothing that, would lead to the excitement of acquiring, say, a Randy Arozarena that did. This is a pure rental. It is a limited player, but it is still a guy who can hit. And at the end of the day, this team needs bats, and this team needs bats at first base. They need bats at DH. They need bats in the outfield. They need bats, at third base.
And not every one of these bats is going to be Randy Arozarena.
No, in fact, well, think about this. The two best hitters that have moved so far at this deadline, which is now about 24 hours away, have been Isaac Paredes and Randy Arozarena. You got one of them. It doesn't sound like Vlad is available. It doesn't sound like Rooker is available. And now we're starting to hear that it's highly likely that Luis Robert isn't getting traded this summer. So in just reality, joining us here in reality, there aren't a lot of big bats available at this deadline. We knew this was a seller's market. There is a ton of buyers. There are very few sellers. There's even fewer bats to buy that we would consider impact than there are most years. So the fact that the Mariners have already acquired one of those bats, is a good thing, but B, it also means that there's just not a lot out there. So maybe you can't go get that second co-headliner with a Arozarena because they're just not available right now. But Turner is a very solid hitter. He's 9-10% above league average. And when you look at what you're getting right now from Garver, who's at bats, Turner basically takes from the DH spot against right-handed pitching at the very least. When you look at what you're getting from Haniger, again, same thing. When you look at what you're getting from Tyler Locklear right now, at first base, when you look at Luke Raley struggling right now, Turner is much more likely to hit than all of them because he's doing it right now. And actually, for the last 2 months, he's been one of the better hitters in the American League. So it's a really solid ad. Would you like better? Would you like a bigger player, more star power? Sure, of course you would. Who are they? Where are they? How do I get them? Because as far as we can tell, none of them are available. The biggest star that's getting moved at this deadline on the offensive side of things is Isak Paredes. And he got moved to the Cubs, who nobody even saw coming. So it's a really nice ad for Seattle. It lengthens their lineup. Turner probably is going to 2 or 3 for a little while until Julio comes back, and he's a guy who's going to...
He might even lead off, right? This is, in a way, the same idea as Yandy Diaz. Mm-hmm. It looks a lot different. It's obviously just it's obviously just a 2-month solution. Right. But that's essentially the idea here. So yeah, Turner might very well lead off in this lineup, even when everyone gets back. Since June 1st, 299, 399, basically a 400 on base percentage. Yeah, he's slugging only 396, whatever. Slugging around the league is down, but yeah, the power is pretty much gone. He's 39 years old. What do you want me to say here? But a 134 WRC plus. Look at the Mariners lineup, folks. Tell me that doesn't help a lot. Right? That plays. That right there, 134 WRC plus, your best bat for most of this year, right? Yeah. Unironically, right? So yeah, I'm super down for this. Justin Turner is just a good player, right? He's a disciplined hitter, right? Mm-hmm. That's what I want. I need that. Not every single guy is going to come with the the headline of a Randy Arozarena or an Isak Paredes or whoever, but the Mariners needs go well beyond that, right? They just need solid plug and play hitters. Turner is that. Checks off that box. He checks off a lot of boxes for what the Mariners need. So I am 100% in on this deal. 100% happy with this deal. And this isn't the same conversation that we would have if you added Turner in the off season, whether it be this off season, last off season, whatever, when we're talking about his age, right? He's hitting right now, right? So there isn't the discussion isn't the same about like, well, is he going to be able to carry that over for another season? No, he just needs to carry it over from today to tomorrow. All I wanted from this team, all I wanted from this front office at this deadline was to try and to get better as much as you possibly could. And this is an example of that. So
100%.
They still need to try and get even better than they are right now, but this helps a lot. So, all right, let's talk a little bit more about this deal. And also I want to talk about how the Mariners clearly have a type with a couple of their ads so far at this deadline in just a moment. But first, a reminder, this episode of the Locked On Mariners podcast is brought to you by Prize Picks and Tax Network USA. Prize Picks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps, on Prize Picks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000. Prize Picks is available in more than 30 states across the country, including California, Texas, and Georgia. And a general rule of thumb here, if they breathe air and they're scheduled to pitch against the Mariners, it's probably a good idea to pick more on their strikeouts. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the promo code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. That's promo code LOCKEDONMLB on Prize Picks for a first deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Here on Locked On Mariners, we pride ourselves on getting you the latest news for your team, whether it's the offseason, the draft, spring training, or the playoffs. It's year-round. You know what else is year-round? Collection season. Just because tax season is over doesn't mean the IRS will stop coming after you for unfiled taxes. The IRS can garnish your wages, levy your bank accounts, and even seize your property. Don't let the IRS target you. Let the licensed professionals and tax experts at Tax Network USA go to bat for you. With over 14 years of experience and an A+ rating by the Better Business Bureau, Tax Network USA has saved their clients over $1 billion in tax debt. Whether you owe taxes, have complicated matters that require tax planning, or finally hit that parlay this season and need help correctly filing, call 1-800-549-1000. That's 1-800-549-1000 or visit tnusa.com/locked on See the link in this episode description. And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. Tonight, you can catch all the action between the Mariners and the Red Sox on the Mariners hometown broadcast of SiriusXM via the SXM app. All you have to do to find that is search the word Mariners, who have just acquired Justin Turner from the Toronto Blue Jays, former Boston Red Sox, by the way, former Los Angeles Dodger, who he won a World Series with. And that kind of leads me to what I want to talk about next here. The Mariners clearly have a type with the first two bats they've added at this deadline with Randy Arozarena, now Justin Turner. That's playoff performers. This deadline is starting to look at least a little bit. It's not a perfect 1-for-1 comparison, but it's starting to look at least a little bit like what the Braves did in 2021 when Ronald Acuna Jr. went down for the whole year, and they wound up going on to win the World Series when they added guys like Jorge Soler and Eddie Rosario, etc. They just got guys who are solid. You know they're going to be solid, and you can just plug them into your lineup and play and just go for it and see what happens, right? And again, Turner's performed in the playoffs. He's won a championship. Arozarena has performed in the playoffs. Unlike most players, right, at an extreme level, he's performed in the playoffs. You also noticing that as well? And do you think that maybe like the next guy we see them acquire could also kind of fit in that mold?
It's possible, although I don't know how much of that is out there, right? Like, I don't know if it's intentional that they're doing this either. I think it's a nice bonus. Like, I can't sit here and say they're definitely targeting postseason, success and postseason. I mean,
because look, like it was very clear, like they wanted Vlad Jr., who doesn't really have that, right? Like he has some postseason experience, but he doesn't have any postseason
series.
He doesn't really have any success in the postseason.
Right. So, I mean, same goes for Garcia. So yeah, I can't say for sure that like they care about that, or if it just happenstance. They just happen to acquire two guys with pretty good track records in the postseason. One of them, like one of the best postseason performers ever. So I don't know for sure if they're specifically targeting that. What I will say is, like, to me, when I look at these two guys, if they're targeting anything in particular, it's guys who are hitting right now. Like, because you look at Randy Arozarena since June 1, he's been fantastic. You look at Justin Turner since June 1, he's been fantastic. So I think if I'm looking for like things they're targeting, they're probably targeting like hitters who are on a heater right now. Does that mean that they wouldn't take a good hitter who's in a slump right now? No, I don't think they're excluding. I don't think they're excluding anybody at this stage. But I also don't know if they're specifically targeting like any one factor here. But obviously, you have a young team. You're about to enter 2 months where every single day is basically a playoff game, right?
Yeah.
Like from now until the division is won, it's pretty much a playoff game type of atmosphere. So yeah, I do think that going out and getting these guys who have played in bigger games than these, who have a ton of postseason experience, have World Series experience, I do think that factors in, and they're accustomed to playing in these big stages and stuff like that. I do think there's a bit of a calming factor there. But I also think what this is more about is just them taking pressure off of the Julios and taking pressure off of the Cal Raleighs, because we saw this last year, right? In August, that little stretch where Julio was out of this world, right? But Teo was really good, Canzone was really good, Rojas was really good, and they just kind of had this 3 or 4 week stretch in August where everybody was just solid, and nobody had to be the star, nobody had to be the guy to get the big hit, because if that guy didn't get it, well, we're not going to get it. And so I think when you add a guy like Arozarena, you add a guy like Turner, you start bumping these guys who have been in the middle or the top of your lineup, you start bumping them down a notch or two. Yeah. All of a sudden the pressure is off because there's somebody behind me who can get this thing done. So I think they look at the postseason experience and they say, that's great. Like that's another reason to go target this guy. I don't think they're saying in like, hey, we're only interested in guys who have this postseason experience. I think they're very open to going out and getting somebody who's never played in the playoffs before, obviously. But I do think that there is something in the back, or some kind of favor being given to guys who have been there, done that type of thing before. But I don't think it's the overwhelming like goal or target of this club to go out and get those players. Because, like, for example, if you could get Brent Rooker at a reasonable price, that dude's never played in the playoffs. You're not going to get Brent Rooker because he's never played in the playoffs? No, of course you're not. You're going to go do that. But yeah, it is pretty funny that they've gone out and the two bats they've acquired have a ton of postseason experience, and both of them have been red hot since about June 1. For the last 2 months, basically. They've been red hot.
The other thing, too, here, and this is a great point made by a friend of the show, Jordan Schusterman, one half Obsessed with His Family Barbecue, of course. The Mariners are also, it seems like they're making a point to make their offense a lot tougher to pitch to. You look at pitches per plate appearance, Justin Turner, second in terms of how many pitches he sees per plate appearance, 4.41. JP Crawford is fourth. Randy Arozarena is sixth. Right, you have 3 of the top 6 guys in pitches per plate appearance in your lineup now. Well, when JP gets back, of course, assuming that JP gets back.
Yeah.
But just seeing more pitches in general, right? Not getting overly eager, working counts, making the pitcher work, right? Frustrating pitchers, etc. All that. So again, this is just about making this lineup better by any means necessary. Right? Because like we talked about, you weren't going to overhaul this entire offense. You weren't going to get perfect fits at the deadline, right? That's more of an off-season thing, trying to piece everything together and trying to do a complete overhaul and trying to find the guys that really, truly fit, because you are in a very limited market, more so than ever, because it's the trade deadline and teams are trying to compete, and teams that are competing against you are not going to trade with you most of the time. Like you're trying to essentially fit a square peg into a round hole. And so not everything is going to be perfect, right? Mm-hmm. But Justin Turner helps. I'm going to emphasize this over and over and over again. He is so much better than a lot of the guys that you have run out there this year. And as someone that has spent 4 months watching this offense continue to just, the bed on a night-to-night basis, yeah, I will take this happily. Yes, 100%.
Right. It's weird to me, and I'm sure every fan base does this, but obviously I only interact with the one. But it does seem weird to me that every year we have this conversation about people who are trying to like gatekeep improvement. Like if you don't improve by X amount, it's not even worth trying. And it's like, okay, Justin Turner is about 20% better than Mitch Haniger.
By the way, last year, remember when we went on our giant rant about what they did at the deadline last year, or what they didn't do at the deadline last year? This is the kind of player that I wanted them to get. Just someone that's solid, that I can plug and play, is not going to cost me a ton. Again, we talked about Mark Hanna. We talked about Tommy Pham. We talked your ears off about that. And we relitigated the deadline for months on end after that. And we talked about like, man, had they had a Tommy Pham or a Mark Hanna or 2 of those guys for the remainder of that season, could they have won the division? Probably. Would that have been the difference between them winning the division and sitting at home and watching the Rangers go on and win the World Series? So yeah, even though that, the guy that they really wanted ultimately wasn't available, they didn't just go, all right, well, I guess we're just not going to do anything. At least they did something. At least they added someone that does improve the team.
Yeah. I think in addition, just this idea, like if you don't go top shelf all the time, you're not even trying, and like this is just a move so they could tell the fan base they're trying even though they're not, all that negative BS that we hear this time of year, like that's not a thing right now. The Mariners went out and they got better. The Mariners are better now than they were an hour ago. That's just a fact. Like you can get as upset as you want about it. You could say, did they get better enough? I don't know. We're going to find out. But A, there's still about 24 hours to go get better, go get even more players. And B, they got better, period. So did they get good enough with this trade? I don't know. Maybe it's possible. We won't know for a couple months. But what I do know, and what everybody knows, the Mariners are a better club today because they acquired Justin Turner than they were an hour ago when they didn't have him. So this, you can miss me with the whole like, oh, they didn't like, this is a waste of resources. No, it's not. You've never heard of RJ Schreck. Guarantee it. You've never heard of the guy. And now all of a sudden you care? You care about this guy who you've never watched play? Why? Because you can use it as a talking point to prove that the Mariners don't care, that the Mariners aren't trying. Because very clearly the Mariners are trying. They've acquired 2 of the best bats that have been moved so far at this deadline. They've acquired one of the 2 or 3 best bullpen arms that have been moved at this deadline. They're still in talks with multiple players. We know that they've shopped at the top shelf. And guess what? Vladimir Guerrero Jr., as much as you want him, is not available. You cannot force somebody to sell you something that they don't want to sell. So,
and by the way, the Mariners are taking on all of his salary,
right, which is about $6 million bucks.
It's 4.2 left for the year.
Right. That's not insignificant. And keep in mind, the Mariners have taken on the full salary of all 3 players they've acquired. Mm-hmm. Now, they've also traded Ty France,
Ryan Stanek,
and that cleared those 2 guys by themselves. Cleared about $2.5 million. I believe that France, the Mariners were paid it down to where they saved about $1 million on France. Stanek had about $1.3 million left on his deal, 1.4. So they saved $2.5 million. Fine, but those are on players that they were getting rid of anyways. Yeah. So who cares that they saved money on that? They've added the $3 million on Arozarena. They added the $2 million-ish on Garcia. Now they're adding the $6 million on Turner. Cool. That's good. Like, that is something that we should point out. Is it something that we should applaud John Stanton for? No, it's the bare minimum, but at least they've added some salary here.
It's noteworthy. That's all it is. It's just noteworthy.
Footnote. Right.
Yeah.
But what it does mean is that the Mariners have been able to look for these players, and the fact that they were trying to get Vlad, who's making $8-9 million the rest of this year, seems to indicate that the front office does have the resources to go add significant payroll. They've been aggressive. We know that they've shopped. You can't find a national reporter anywhere who said that the Mariners haven't been aggressive. These aren't local sources that the Mariners are feeding intel to. These are national guys. The Mariners have been aggressive at this deadline. And look at what they've done. They've done more for their major league roster at this deadline than any other team has yet. Could other teams do more? Sure, they probably will. But the Mariners
significantly more than the Astros have done so far.
Right. And so, again, give it time. There's still 24 hours.
Yeah.
We'll see and I don't think the Mariners
I'd say that fully knowing that the Astros are going to do something wacky tomorrow.
I mean, I assume that the Mariners are probably out on Yandy Diaz at this point, and he makes a lot of sense for a team like the Astros. So maybe they had that. Yeah. I don't know. But the simple fact of the matter is, A, yes, the Mariners are trying to get better. Fact.
Yeah.
B, the payroll, as far as we can tell, has not been an issue at this deadline. They've added it. They pursued guys who are making big contracts. Not an issue. Are they prospect hugging? No. By all accounts, they've been willing to shop their top prospects. Jerry DiPoto himself has said this, and it's been confirmed by multiple people. It's been confirmed by the Passons and the Rosenthals that, the Mariners are aggressive on these guys. The Mariners are willing to shop their top prospects. So as far as we can tell, the Mariners are doing everything they can at this deadline to have as impactful of a deadline as they can. And at the end of the day, that is what we want. That is what we were concerned they weren't going to do. They're doing it. They're doing it right now. And just because you don't like one of the moves doesn't mean that you get to be like, they're not even trying.
And there's no reason that you shouldn't like this move. I'm sorry. There isn't.
No.
He's a good hitter. Yes, he's old, but I just need him to be good for 2 months. Mm-hmm. I just need him to do what he was doing literally today and yesterday, tomorrow. That's it. Yep. So, I don't see anything really wrong with this deal. Is it underwhelming relative to a potential Vladimir Guerrero Jr. addition? Yes, but was that realistic? Doesn't seem like it. Right? And it'd be one thing if Vlad ends up getting traded to another team, but I don't think that's going to happen. It seems pretty clear they're not trading him, right? Brent Rooker's probably not getting traded. So we can get upset that the Mariners didn't come away with those guys, but no one did. No one will. So again, what's key here is all right, if that wasn't possible, what did you do in spite of it? Mm-hmm. And so far the Mariners have pivoted and they're adding good players that make them better.
Yep.
Right. Mm-hmm. So yeah. All right. So let's talk about what could be next for the Mariners, because we still have a little ways to go before the actual trade deadline. Go over that in just a moment. But first, a reminder, this episode of the Locked On Mariners podcast is brought to you by FanDuel. I know I'm saying the obvious here, but I love sports. I love them so much I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, unfortunately, we get fewer games, and the sports aren't sportsing like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right, there's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head on over to FanDuel.com/lockedon, that's LOCKDON, and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. Once again, tonight you can catch all the action between the Mariners and the Red Sox on the Mariners hometown broadcast with SiriusXM via the SXM app. All you have to do to find that is search the word Mariners. So Justin Turner should probably be in the lineup tomorrow because the Blue Jays are in Baltimore right now, so that's not that far away from Boston. So I imagine he's making his debut tomorrow. So you can also catch his debut on the Mariners hometown broadcast with SiriusXM via the SXM app. And hey, who knows? Maybe someone else as well. The Mariners are apparently not done, according to Ryan Divish. So, Colby, what do you think is next for the Mariners?
Well, we talked about it just because of the lack of like true impact bats. It's kind of hard to imagine that they're going to go find one that we didn't know was available and bring him in. So I think you're looking more at the, Mike Yastrzemski types. I do think in theory, the final bat you add should probably be, or maybe not final, but like the last big one you should add is probably an outfielder, particularly left-handed. Turner is a right-handed hitter. Rosarena is a right-handed hitter. Your lineup's starting to get awfully right-handed heavy, which if you're going to be left-handed heavy or right-handed heavy, you'd rather be right-handed heavy, but whatever. Still, we know that Scott really likes a balanced lineup. Well, right now he's about a left-handed bat short of being able to do that with consistency. So I think you want to add a lefty if possible, and I think you would prefer that guy to be an outfielder. I mean, it'd be great if you could play shortstop, but how many of those guys are out there? So yeah, I think you're looking at Yastrzemski. I think you're looking at a Conforto. I think you're looking at, not a lefty, but Taylor Ward, possible, that type of guy, maybe a Lane Thomas, that type of guy. Brandon Lau's fit is a little bit shady now because you can't really DH.
You can make it work. I mean, let's be honest about this. You could still make a first base type work even after Turner because you still have DH bats to give, and Garver can essentially just act as your backup catcher.
Right.
Right. So like Yandy Diaz isn't necessarily out, right? No. It's just a lot more unlikely.
Right. And so it's not like Turner has to play all the last 54 games of the season. He probably can't.
And Brandon Lau can still fit because he can play second. Right. Polanco can go to third. Polanco's not a great option at third, and he hasn't done it this year yet, but he has done it in the past.
Not a option at second either. And Lau does have some experience in the outfield, although it's been a while.
Yeah, and Lau has played a little bit, mostly in 2019, pretty much all in 2019 at first base. So you could potentially do that as well.
And at a certain point, you care about the bat more than the glove. Like, look what they did last year, right? Like, they acquired Josh Rojas. Is Josh Rojas a true second baseman? No, not really. Did they just make it work because they wanted the bat? Yeah, they just made it work, and it turns out Rojas is actually really good at second, according to the metrics. So, it's just because the guy isn't a natural third baseman or whatever, it doesn't mean he can't play there. Because you're willing to sacrifice some defense for the bat. So Lau still makes some sense, not as much as he did before the acquisition of Turner. So, a Lamont Wade type would be great. If we could play first and play some left field, that type of thing. But I do think that one position, shortstop, is maybe a little bit overlooked just because JP's not going to be back until September at the earliest. September. Do you really want Dylan Moore to be the shortstop, the everyday shortstop, for the next month in the middle of a pennant race? I know I don't want that to happen. Now, the problem is that there's not a lot of shortstop options out there as far as we know. So you're looking at Ahmad Rosario, possibly. You're looking at, Paul DeYoung, maybe. DeYoung obviously hits a lot of home runs, strikes out a lot. Rosario, kind of the complete opposite, doesn't strike out. Neither guy walks. Not a very good defender at short, though. Just makes a ton of contact. So there are a couple guys out there who we absolutely know are available, but there's really not a ton of shortstop options available to you aside from those two guys. So, maybe it's Nico Horner. I mean, that's still a possibility. Maybe it's Brendan Donovan, which I mean, it's not going to be, but you know what I mean. Like maybe there's a surprise still floating around out there. But to me, like ideally, you're looking for a left-handed hitting, like perfect world, left-handed hitting middle infielder. Does that guy exist? I haven't found him. If he does, so probably not. Next up would be a left-handed hitting outfielder.
Mhm.
Can you find that guy? Yeah, maybe. If you can't, what's next? Any above average bat or average bat would be very helpful.
Seems like they're also going to maybe add a reliever, or at least they would like to add a reliever. Seems like after the Jimmy Garcia deal, like they were still checking in on relievers. There hasn't been any further reporting about that. It does seem like they're not content with their bullpen as currently constructed.
I do think that a Dylan Floro,
Yeah,
Lane Thomas package
or Kyle
makes some
Finnegan.
sense. Yeah, Kyle Finnegan makes some sense. It could be something like Lucas Ursig. How do you pronounce it?
Yeah.
Lucas Ursig and like Abraham Toro. Like Toro makes some sense.
Yeah.
Obviously, you'd be doing that mostly for Ursig, but yeah, Toro makes some sense. So there are some guys out there. You could still go. Pete Fairbanks, I believe, is still technically a Tampa Bay Ray. We've been here that he's supposed to be traded to the Yankees for the last 2 or 3 days, and it hasn't happened yet. So maybe Fairbanks and Lau is the way you go. Maybe Fairbanks and Rosario. Like there's definitely options out there. I think the Mariners are going to add at least one more bat and call it a deadline. I think that bat is probably going to be about league average. So I think just because there's just like if Brent Rooker was out there, I would feel like if he was legitimately available, I think the Mariners would be aggressive on a guy like that. But I just don't see any bats that are even at Randy Arozarena's level that are going to be traded in the next 24 hours. Maybe it's certainly possible. Someone can surprise us, but like, who is it? I mean, I guess Cody Bellinger, maybe. There's not a lot. Maybe. There's not a lot out there right now. So
but also the Cubs look like they're trying to compete next year. So
yeah, but if they think Bellinger's going to opt out either way, so
yeah, I doubt he's going to sacrifice all that money, but
I mean, we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll know in about 24 hours and we'll know what the final deals look like. I do think Seattle's got one more move in them. I don't think it's going to be earth shattering like Randy, I don't even think it's going to be another Randy Arozarena.
No, it might. It'll probably be like the Paul DeYoung, Lane Thomas,
sure,
etc.
But I should say this: I think the reason it's not going to be Randy Arozarena is not because the Mariners don't want to add another player like that. It's because a player like that simply isn't available to them.
Yeah,
it is a very thin market.
I think the only guy that probably gets moved that's in the Arozarena tier is Yandy Diaz. And as we talked about earlier, maybe he ends up going to the Astros, and at that point I think there's a fair complaint to have there about the Mariners not coming away with him. But until that happens, and until we see what else the Mariners do, the picture's incomplete still.
This is why we don't grade individual trades.
But also, whether or not they get Yandy or Yandy moves in general, that doesn't make Justin Turner a bad move, right? And it doesn't. And again, you can still make really anything work on your roster right now, positionally speaking. So it doesn't stop them from going out and get Yandy Diaz if they like Yandy Diaz enough.
Yeah. For the record, Scott has said that they hope to use Turner more at first base than Toronto did. So it sounds like they still kind of want to keep their DH options open to him.
Yeah.
Which could be loud.
And the Mariners just officially announced the deal.
Cool.
And we got a nice little Photoshop of Justin Turner in a Mariners uniform, which I got to say is pretty weird. It's a bit weird seeing Justin Turner in a Mariners uniform, but there we go. Yeah, but there we go. Justin Turner, World Series champion, is a Seattle Mariner.
Interesting from the tweet here is that they acquired cash considerations from the Blue Jays, so maybe they're not taking on all of that contract.
Okay.
So some new information from the Mariners themselves. I believe it was Kramer who said that they were taking on all of the deal. So
yeah,
might be an insignificant amount, might be a significant amount. We don't know, and we'll probably learn roughly what the amount is in the next 24 to 48 hours.
All right, well, that's going to do it for our show. But before we get out of here, a reminder that Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Locked On Mariners podcast. For Colby Patnode, I'm Ty Dane Gonzalez. Be sure to give us a follow on Twitter at LO_Mariners. You can follow me at Ty Dane Gonzalez and Colby at CPAT11. That's CPAT11. You can also find all that stuff in the description of this episode. Have yourself a beautiful baseball day, and we'll see you next time. Peace.